Okay, so let's kind of go over what you did for this activity for 11.3. So you had 3 or 4 questions to answer about it, but I got it already covered here for you. I'm just want to go over a few questions with you. So the first thing I want to know is, do congruent rectangles have the same perimeter, and explain your reasoning? I said yes, they have to have the same perimeter because all the side lengths have to be the same size. Because of that reason, congruent rectangles must have the same perimeter. And the next question, do congruent rectangles have the same area? Explain your reasoning. And I say, yes, they do have to have the same area because, once again, they both would take up the same space on the inside. Because that's what on the inside of figure, because that's what area measures. So they would have to have the same area. Okay. Let me ask you just a couple more questions. So let's see what else we got here. Okay, are rectangles of the same perimeter always congruent? You notice the word always? So let's take a look at a few of them and see what we think. So we're looking ones with the same perimeter. So if you look at the green one here, it's got 6 plus 6 would be 12, and that would be 13 and 14. So do we have another one with the area of 14? Let me see, like I can compare it to. Let's see, that would be 6 and 6, that would be 10. Okay, so let's maybe look at a different one. Let's do the gray and the blue, okay, because I'm looking at the perimeter here, because that would be 4 plus 4 plus 1 plus 1 would be 10, and that would be 3 and 3, and 2 and 2, that would make 10. So if you look at these two figures, you can see that they are not the same shape, because the side lengths, although they had the same perimeter, the corresponding side lengths are not the same. So the long side here is 4 and that one's 3. So even though they had the same perimeter, I would still have to say that no, they are not congruent figures, okay? Because once again, the side lengths are not the same size. They're just like this one's 4 and 1 and this one's 3 and 2. So even though if you add up all the sides, they had the same perimeter, because the corresponding sides don't have the matching length, they are not corresponding. And also, if we looked at the area of it, like for let's compare the blue and the green one here. So if you look at the area, 1 times 6 would be 6, and 3 times 2 would be 6. And for the same reason, even though they have the same area, if you look at the corresponding side lengths, this one's 6 and that one's 3, the corresponding sides are not the same length. So once again, because of that reason, they will not be congruent, okay? All right, so measuring perimeter and area is a good method to show that two shapes are not congruent if these measurements are different. So if the measurements, right away we can know if their perimeter is not the same with both of them, we automatically know that they are not congruent. We have to do a little bit more to decide if whether or not they're congruent, because we saw that on our last activity. Although some of the shapes had the same perimeter, just like the ones below, A and B had the same perimeter, but if you look closely at it, the little tab here and this one here, they're not in the same location. So because of that reason, because they're not the same shape, that means they're not congruent, okay? Okay, whoop, that popped up fast. In Young words, define congruent, okay? Two shapes are congruent when there is a sequence of translations, rotations, reflections that take one shape to another, okay? How can you check to see if the two shapes are congruent? Okay, well, let's see. For rectangles, the side lengths are enough to tell, but for more complex shapes, experimenting with transformations is necessary. Okay. Are the shapes in its mirror image congruent? Yes, because the reflection takes the shape to its mirror image. In other words, when you perform the reflection, they should blend directly on top of each other. Okay, what are some ways to know that two shapes are not congruent? Okay, two shapes are not congruent if they have different areas, side lengths, or angles. Okay, what are some properties that are shared by congruent shapes? Well, they had the same number of sides, same length of sides, same angles, and same area. Okay, so today's goals, I can decide visually whether or not two figures are congruent. Okay, so after the video, you may go on and read over your summary.